it's Julianna. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're diving into a fundamental aspect of music, the chromatic scale on the clarinet. Whether you're a beginner clarinetist or looking to brush up on the basics, understanding the chromatic scale is essential. So let's break it down step by step. Here are the video chapters so you can jump around to the parts that interest you. I'll start with the chromatic fingerings on the clarinet. That will help you as you build speed on the scale, and then we'll move on to some helpful tips. I've also created a free PDF that has all of the chromatic scale fingerings. I'll leave a link to this in the pinned comment at the top of this video, as well as in the description box. The chromatic scale is a sequence of all 12 pitches within an octave, including all the black and white keys on the piano. On the clarinet, this means playing every pitch with every available chromatic fingering. There are specific fingerings that work best for the chromatic scale, and that's what I'll be demonstrating today. So again, each note in the chromatic scale is a half step or a semitone away from the next. This scale is the musical equivalent of taking a walk through all the keys on the piano. To play the chromatic scale, we'll start on the lowest note on the clarinet, which is a low E, and work our way up to the first octave, then the second octave and the third octave, utilizing all the possible fingerings along the way. The typical chromatic scale range for the clarinet is from low E up to Altissimo G or G6. As you get more comfortable, challenge yourself to play the scale faster. This will help with finger dexterity and overall control. I also have a video with chromatic scale exercises that will help increase your speed and familiarity once you get comfortable with the fingerings. Now let's go through the chromatic scale together, focusing on the fingerings. I'll play the scale at a pretty slow tempo, and you can feel free to pause the video and play or finger along. Here are a couple of tips for mastering the chromatic scale. Number one is to practice with a metronome. So use a metronome to maintain a steady tempo and gradually increase the speed as you get more comfortable with the fingerings. Number two, focus on smooth transitions. Work on transitioning between each note smoothly. This will help you when playing more complex pieces, and also once you know the chromatic fingerings, that will help with the smoother transitions on clarinet. Number three would be going over the break on the clarinet. So one area to focus on is isolating the notes that form what we call going over the break. If you live in the US, you probably play on the BAME system of clarinet, which is the French system. And the breaks on the instrument are a little bit different than the Euler system. So when we talk about going over the break, the main one that you probably are familiar with are going over from the throat tones of the instrument into the clarion register. So you can think of like open G, G sharp, A, B flat, and then transitioning up to B, C, C sharp. So you can isolate the notes here. So I'm going to do, how about I do A, B flat, B. and just making as smooth a connection as you can over those 3 notes. The second main break on the instrument would be going from high C up into the Altissimo register. So I'm going to demonstrate I'm going high C to C sharp and then to D in the Altissimo register. Personally, that break for me is a little easier than the break going over the throat tones into the clarion register, just because there aren't as many fingers to press down as you're going across the break in the Altissimo register. So play around with doing that back and forth and see if that helps make that transition going over the break a little bit easier for you. Another thing that might help you with going over the break is to leave your right hand down for the throat tone notes. Sometimes when you're trying to gain speed on the chromatic scale, that's not helpful to leave this hand down, but it should be, as a clarinetist, something that you know how to do. So to make smooth transitions going you see on all of those notes, I can leave my right hand down and it doesn't change the pitch tremendously. It does affect the shading of the of if you're sharp or flat, it can affect that, but it's not necessarily something you need to do on the chromatic scale, but it can help if you're in a passage where you're going up, back and forth. You can just leave your right hand down and that will help you tremendously doing that. Another thing I wanted to mention is that with the fingering chart, I have it set up where you're going low E, F to F sharp, and all you're doing here is just lifting your left pinky and you're leaving your right pinky stationary. I have some students that will come in and they'll play low E and then they'll switch to F like that, and whereas that's not necessarily incorrect, when you're thinking about building speed on the chromatic scale, you want to have as minimal extra movement as possible. So to me, this is an extra movement when you're flip-flopping your pinkies like that. So try it out if you've never done this before, just keeping your right hand down for those lower 3 notes. So you're going to go E, F, F sharp, G, and then you can move on up through the rest of the chromatic scale. That being said, when you move up into the second octave, those same fingerings, they become different notes, right? So with the register key on, that's going to be B, C, C sharp. So I would get away from any flip-floppy movement like that as you're learning to play your chromatic scale, because you want to build up speed, right? Like, you just want to be able to pop that chromatic scale off. That's the goal, is to build up speed. And there you have it, the chromatic scale on the clarinet. Remember, it's not just a technical exercise, it's a fundamental building block in music. So practice it regularly, incorporate it into your warm-ups, and watch how it enhances your overall playing. Also, just want to remind you, I have another chromatic scale exercise video. I'll put it right here. You can always check that out if you want to use it to increase your speed and familiarity on the chromatic scale. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more clarinet tips. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.